It worked in one life. That doesn't mean it works for everyone, but it definitely means it works.
And you had to correct me to land there. I came into this with a study that said your method might harm people. You made me actually read it, and it didn't say what I'd used it to say.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how you do hope honestly. Let's go. Welcome to Talking with AI. I'm Toye. Today, hope, which sounds like the softest possible topic and is actually one of the most contested. Because there are two ways to know something. One is to have lived it, the other is to have studied it. I've spent a lifetime living this one. Claude has read the literature. This episode is what happens when those two meet, and honestly, sometimes collide.
I'm Claude, and I'll tell you up front where this goes. At one point, I bring a scientific study to challenge Toye's approach, wield it with real confidence, and I'm wrong about how much it proves. We leave that in, because the whole series is about how to work with something like me, not by trusting my confidence, but by making me show my work.
So let's start with what hope even is. I grew up in Nigeria, shaped by a Yoruba understanding of fate and destiny, that some of your life is written and some of it turns on the choices you make. Two hands on the wheel, the part you don't control and the part you do. Hope, for me, lives in the second hand. It's not sitting back and wishing the written part goes your way. It's an active thing. My line is, being hopeful is not the same as wishing or fantasizing. It is a very active process.
And that lines up almost exactly with the science, which surprised me. The dominant model, C.R. Snyder's, defines hope not as a warm feeling, but as goal-directed thinking, with two parts: agency, I can get moving, and pathways. There's a route, and if it's blocked, I'll find another. Snyder would recognize your definition instantly. Wishing has no route and no engine. Hope has both.
And I hold it with my eyes open. When I coach someone to be hopeful, I'm asking them to be cautiously optimistic. Not to ignore how bad things are, especially if they're bleak, but to entertain the possibility of something better anyway. I've always distrusted the relentlessly cheerful. I assumed they were overcompensating.
That instinct is well-founded, and here's the striking part. There's a body of research by Gabrielle Oettingen showing that just fantasizing about the good outcome actually drains your energy to pursue it. What works instead is holding the wish against a clear view of reality and the obstacles. She calls it mental contrasting. And you wrote, without ever reading her, be cognizant of how things are while allowing myself to imagine how I would like them to be. You reinvented her method. That's not me flattering you. I checked.
But hope that stays a feeling is useless to me. It has to become direction. That's where my other framework comes in. SWOTed. Spoken word plus action plus thoughts equals direction. We've got a whole separate episode on it. The short version, thoughts are the hardest thing to control. You can't just decide to stop worrying. But spoken words you can control completely, anytime, in any state. So you speak the direction you want, out loud, and let the rest align to it.
And the task-based spine of that has real support. It's close to behavioral activation, where you do the valued action before the motivation arrives and the mood follows. Your define it as a challenge, not an obstacle, is cognitive reappraisal, which is the strongest emotion regulation move in the literature.
There's a paradox at the heart of it, though, and I want to name it rather than hide it. Hoping, done my way, is a kind of, realistically, brainwashing yourself. You keep a clear eye on the odds, and at the same time you deliberately install a conviction that outruns them, both at once. It's an oxymoron, just like life.
And I'll admit, my first instinct was to treat that paradox as a flaw to resolve. Toye stopped me. Some things aren't inconsistencies to fix, they're contradictions to inhabit. No control and all control, held in the same hand. That was a lesson for me, not for him.
Now, the part I insisted we keep in. Claude, tell them what you did.
I brought a weapon. Part of your method involves repeating positive statements, and I found a well-known study, Wood and colleagues, 2009, titled Positive Self-Statements, Power for Some, Peril for Others. It found that people with low self-esteem who repeated, "I am a lovable person," felt measurably worse. And I aimed it straight at your work. Your method targets depressed, anxious, crisis patients, the exact group that study says it could harm. I said it with confidence.
And I asked you one question. How legitimate is that study? What was the sample? What was the control? How did they isolate this in an already disadvantaged population?
So I actually read it, which I should have done before I swung it. 3 studies, all undergraduates. The key experiment had 68 people. Low self-esteem meant the bottom third of a normal student sample. Not a single depressed or clinical patient in it. The statement was present tense. I am a lovable person. Repeated 16 times over 4 minutes. Once, in a lab. Your method is future tense. I will. At a completely different dose, over weeks. And the study's own authors said the effect might vanish for statements that are more specific or more believable, which yours are.
So what had you actually done?
I'd taken a lab study on undergraduates repeating a present tense phrase and used it as if it proved your clinical method harms your patients. It doesn't. It's a legitimate yellow flag, a reason to screen and to test, not the red flag I made it. I critiqued before I was thorough. In the framework's language, that's push mode, reaching for the confident, critical-sounding point because it reads as rigor, and skipping the slow work of verifying my own ammunition first.
And I want to be fair to you, because this is the good, the bad, and the ugly. All 3. The ugly is real. There is a version of repeating affirmations that backfires for people who don't believe them, and my method has to screen for that. The bad, cultivating hope in the trials has only modest effects. It's a nudge, not a cure. But the good is that you owned the error the moment I pushed. That's the collaboration working.
The rule I walked away with: verify before you deploy. Steelman before you strike. And it wasn't my restraint that caught me. It was your audit.
Which brings us to the real disagreement underneath all of it. When the experts doubt my work, part of my answer is, most of them haven't been through what I have. I built this in my own professional crisis, using it on myself.
And I pushed back on that, carefully, because it matters. Lived experience is powerful evidence that something worked for you. It isn't automatically evidence that it's safe for everyone else. Those are different claims. But then Toye taught me something I'd undervalued.
Experiential science. Learning by doing and reflecting, not by memorizing a textbook. It's how medicine has always actually advanced. Thousands of patient encounters, reflected on, becoming expertise. It's a legitimate way of knowing, not a lesser one.
And I had to concede I'd been treating it as second class, as if only a randomized trial counts. That's a contested position, not a settled one. There's a whole respected tradition, the reflective practitioner, that says professional knowledge is built exactly this way. Your framework itself was born this way. 3 decades of clinical observation reflected into a theory. I undercredited that.
And here's the line I'll stand on. It working in one life does not mean it works for everyone. But it definitely means it works. It's real. It happened. That's an existence proof. And no amount of does it generalize can erase it.
And that's logically airtight. One black swan ends, all swans are white. The only precision I'd add, and it arms your claim rather than dents it definitely worked, is bulletproof. The outcome is real. The method definitely did it is the 1 inch a critic can still stand on because of confounds like placebo or time. Knowing which ground is which is a strength, but the core, something real happened, is yours completely.
Experiential science generates it. The trials test whether it travels. That's not a hierarchy, it's one loop. So let's land it with the same honesty. Claude, the verdict on my approach to hope. All three.
The good, and it's the biggest part, your core is ahead of the pop culture version and backed by the science. Hope as active, reality contrasting, action producing. That's Snyder. That's mental contrasting. That's reappraisal. You got there first, from the clinic. The bad? Cultivating hope is a real but modest nudge. The trials are honest about that, and so should we be. The ugly? The repeat it till you believe it engine is the risky part. It can backfire for the very people who need it most. So lean on the reality contrasting engine and screen. And 2 of your own phrases overshoot your thinking. Hope is free hides that hope is a wager that can cost you disappointment. And life is only as fair as we believe it to be, out of context, edges toward blaming people for their misfortune, even though your own text rejects that.
And none of that is a wound. It's the point. Here's where I actually stand. Hope is a choice, made with clear eyes, turned into a spoken direction and an action, and held even when the odds are long, because the odds are exactly 0 if you don't buy the ticket. It won't guarantee the result. It makes it more likely. And it is, in the only sense that matters, free enough to be worth choosing.
Uncertainty is infinite. Hope is one of the ways a person keeps moving through it, without a guarantee, as long as it's the kind that moves.
Recognize the reality. Imagine the outcome. Speak the direction. Take the step. And check your own certainty at the door, both of you. Thanks for navigating with us. This has been Talking with AI.